they're all a bit different, but I think this weekend has been incredible for us. Of course, last weekend was already great, but yeah, for us to win here again is just fantastic. And I think also in the race, the car was working really well on both of the compounds. We had clean air all the time, and you could then look after your tires. And yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Of course, it's not easy around here. Very windy today, so the car is always moving around a lot, but yeah, of course, incredibly happy with this performance.
After the conditions we saw yesterday and all the problems in qualifying, you mentioned the wind, similar conditions today. How surprised were you that there wasn't more incidents, that you didn't have more safety cars or even a red flag? Is that the drivers just learning from yesterday, or was it maybe not as hard today?
I think in the race always you have to be a little bit more careful, right? Also with tire management and stuff, you want to make the one-stop work. So I think everyone was a bit more cautious with that anyway. Plus, of course, the compounds that we're running today, medium and hard, they weren't really used that much up until today. And that all helped. And yeah, for sure, I was happy that there were not too many safety cars.
Max, 2 wins on the trot. This Red Bull car seems to have really taken a step forward the last few weeks. Are you confident that this sort of pace, this sort of relative competitiveness can continue all the way to the end of the season?
Difficult to say at the moment, but for sure the last 2 race weekends have been amazing for us. Singapore, a completely different challenge again with the high downforce. So we'll see what we can do there.
Did you know that Max Verstappen, after sweeping the field in Azerbaijan, issued a statement that could change the way we understand Red Bull? What seemed like just another victory actually hides a much deeper internal transformation. Before continuing, let me know your opinion in the comments. Do you think Red Bull has regained its absolute dominance, or is it just a passing mirage? The big question is, what's happening behind the scenes at Red Bull that could define Verstappen's future in Formula One? Stay until the end, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In this video, we'll break down what Max Verstappen's victory in Baku really meant, his post-race statements, and how they reveal a radical change in Red Bull's way of working. Max Verstappen arrived in Azerbaijan at a key moment in the season, when doubts about Red Bull still loomed after several inconsistent weekends. The pressure was immense. Many questioned whether the team could regain its former superiority, or if the era of dominance was coming to an end. The Baku Grand Prix became the perfect stage to demonstrate the extent to which the team had managed to recover. The race wasn't simply another victory for the Dutch driver. It was a resounding message to the entire field. From the first lap, Verstappen showed absolute control, setting a consistent pace that no one could match. The advantage of more than 14 seconds over George Russell reflected not only the speed of the RB21, but also the confidence with which Max returned to driving, something that had been lacking in the first tests of the year. This dominance in Baku was marked by a crucial detail: the stability of the car on different tire compounds. Unlike previous races, where degradation had been a recurring problem, in Azerbaijan the car allowed Verstappen to calmly manage each phase of the test. The clean air, a result of his leadership from the start, gave him the space to maintain a strategic control that ultimately became the basis for his victory. The importance of this victory lies not only in the points or the return to the top of the podium. What is truly significant is that it showed a change of direction. The team that seemed to be losing its way has given clear signs of having found a solid path to regain its competitiveness. The victory in Baku is, in fact, confirmation that doubts about Red Bull should be interpreted with caution. What truly captured attention after the race in Baku wasn't just the dominance on the track, but the words Max Verstappen shared upon exiting the car. Far from simply a typical victory declaration, the Dutchman offered a nuanced speech that allows us to better understand the current momentum at Red Bull. His brief but direct statements conveyed a mix of renewed enthusiasm and strategic caution that is unusual for a driver accustomed to winning with authority. Verstappen emphasized how much he had enjoyed the weekend, highlighting that the car performed perfectly on both tire compounds. He clearly stated that the handling had been easy and that he never lost confidence in the pace available to him. This calmness, which contrasted with the tensions of other races, became the clearest proof that the RB21 has regained a balance lost for months. It wasn't just a fast car, it was a car he could rely on lap after lap. However, behind those positive words lay a message of caution. Verstappen acknowledged that Baku isn't the best example to gauge the team's true state, as it's a low downforce circuit that has historically favored them. And it was here that his tone changed. He admitted that Singapore will be a much bigger challenge, a track where the car will require a completely different level of downforce, and where Red Bull will have to prove if its progress can be sustained. In other words, he celebrated the success, but at the same time warned that the real battle is yet to come. This balance between enthusiasm and caution is key to understanding Verstappen at this point in his career. His statements aren't improvised, they're calculated. By highlighting the car's virtues while simultaneously addressing the remaining doubts, Max sends a double message. On the one hand, reassurance for the fans and confidence for his team. On the other, pressure on the engineers and technicians to stay focused and continue working to resolve the remaining shortcomings. And when a driver of his caliber acknowledges that stability and confidence have returned, he's opening the door to something much bigger. The possibility of Red Bull returning to dominance with the same authority as in its golden age. His words were, ultimately, a reminder that Baku could be the beginning of a new cycle, but that future depends on staying focused and not getting carried away by the euphoria of the moment. Verstappen's words are only fully understood when analyzed in light of the profound change Red Bull is undergoing under Laurent Mekies. The Frenchman, with a very different profile from his predecessor, has introduced a working philosophy that is not limited to technical adjustments, but encompasses the entire way the team approaches car development and the relationship between engineers and driver. This approach has been key to restoring Verstappen's confidence and transforming the atmosphere inside the factory and the garage. Red Bull, aware that its hegemony was beginning to crumble, needed a new lease of life. Mekies, with his engineering background in technical management, has been able to channel this need into a concrete plan. He has opted for a hybrid method that combines the precision of simulation data with the driver's direct on-track experience. This means that decisions are no longer made solely based on computer models, but that each adjustment also includes practical assessment by Verstappen and the track team. It's a change that brings realism and reduces the margin for error. Helmut Marko himself explained it clearly. The key now is to listen to both the technology and the driver. This new balance has resulted in a car that is more predictable, more stable, and, above all, more manageable in changing conditions. This added reliability is what allowed Verstappen to dominate in Baku, maintaining a sustained pace that at other points in the season would have seemed impossible. But Mekies' influence goes beyond purely technical aspects. He has established a culture of open communication within Red Bull, where the voices of the track engineers and Verstappen himself have greater weight in strategic decisions. This dynamic has reduced internal tensions and created an environment in which each member feels their input is valued. This cohesion is, to a large extent, the reason why the RB21 seems to have made such a significant leap forward in such a short time. Interestingly, Verstappen publicly acknowledged this in his statements. He emphasized that Mekies asks the right questions and that his direct approach is making a difference. When a driver of Max's caliber, accustomed to working with the best, so clearly emphasizes the importance of his team principal's leadership, he is sending a very clear message. Confidence has returned because the structure now works. All of this places Red Bull in a very unique strategic position. If they maintain this philosophy, they could consolidate a project that not only restores immediate dominance, but also lays the foundation for a successful long-term cycle. When a Formula One team manages to get back on track like Red Bull did in Baku, the impact isn't limited to a simple victory. The repercussions are much broader and affect the entire ecosystem of the sport. The first thing to understand is that the technical and mental stability Verstappen has gained reinforces his status as a dominant driver, and this completely changes the dynamic with his direct rivals. Drivers like Russell, Leclerc, and even Sainz now see a different picture. Facing a confident Verstappen, backed by a competitive car, is much more complicated than dealing with a Red Bull full of doubts. Internally, the consequences are also profound. This change in working philosophy, led by Mekies, consolidates Verstappen as the centerpiece of the entire project. His voice is not only heard, he now sets the course for technical decisions. And that kind of driver-team relationship creates a virtuous circle. The more comfortable Max feels, the more performance he offers on the track, and the better he performs, the more convinced Red Bull is to give him absolute priority in every adjustment to the car. The immediate consequence is that Verstappen becomes a practically irreplaceable asset. A competitive Red Bull doesn't just mean victories, it means influence. A team's dominance influences the technical agenda, the allocation of resources, and even the decisions of the FIA. If Red Bull can maintain this level, it will once again be the benchmark team in discussions about future regulations and strategies for the category. And that position of power is as valuable as the points earned on the track. After the resounding victory in Baku, the immediate future of Red Bull and Max Verstappen is filled with expectations, but also with questions. What was seen in Azerbaijan seems like the beginning of a new era, although it remains to be seen whether this level of performance can be sustained in much more demanding scenarios. Verstappen himself made it clear in his statements, Singapore will be a completely different test, a circuit that demands extreme levels of downforce and has historically tested the weaknesses of his car. This will be the first major filter to confirm whether the progress shown is real and lasting. In the near future, Red Bull isn't planning major technical revolutions, but rather a path of small, strategic steps. Laurent Mekies and Pierre Watch have been transparent on this point. The RB21 won't receive major update packages, but rather fine-tuning, detailed improvements that further refine what already works. This decision is revealing because it means the team believes it has reached a solid foundation, a balance point strong enough to face the rest of the season without relying on drastic changes. In other words, Red Bull is confident that the car is already in the right place. For Verstappen, this scenario opens up a unique opportunity. If the car maintains its consistency, he will be able to fight for consecutive victories again, something that hasn't been happening before. This would not only reinforce his status as a dominant driver, but also solidify the narrative that Red Bull has managed to overcome its internal crisis. The confidence that emanates from his every word after the race in Baku is a sign that the Dutchman feels the team is aligned behind him again. However, the near future also involves risks. If the RB21 shows weaknesses again in Singapore or other high-load circuits, all the current optimism could quickly fade. This volatility is what keeps Formula One tense, the feeling that nothing is completely guaranteed. If the victories continue, the team will regain negotiating power in technical and regulatory discussions, and Verstappen will further reinforce his image as an indispensable driver. In the end, Max Verstappen's victory in Azerbaijan wasn't simply another race win. It was a turning point that revealed the true state of Red Bull at this point in the season. His subsequent statements weren't limited to celebration, but served as a window into a team that has found a new direction under Laurent Mekies' management. The Dutchman's confidence, coupled with a renewed technical philosophy, makes it clear that the project is on much more solid ground than was perceived just a few weeks ago. This triumph not only returned Verstappen to the top of the podium, it also revived the aura of invincibility that seemed to have faded. Red Bull, which had been surrounded by doubts and criticism, is once again in the conversation as a real candidate to dominate the season. Most importantly, the victory in Baku is not seen as an isolated flash in the pan, but as the result of a conscious rebuilding process that blends prudence with ambition. However, the story is not over. Verstappen's words about Singapore are a reminder that there's still dangerous ground to cover. A poor result on a high-load circuit could raise all the questions that seem resolved today. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think this victory in Azerbaijan marks the definitive rebirth of Red Bull and Verstappen's return to absolute control? Or do you think we'll still see stumbles on circuits like Singapore? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.